What do you mean the expert is charging $10,000 for his review of my medical records? That's outrageous. You want to know why that's important and why it's going to affect your particular case? Come join me for a walk on this deserted island as I share with you the answer to that question. Hi, I'm Gerry Oginski. I'm a New York medical malpractice and personal injury attorney. In New York, in order to bring a medical malpractice case, we have to have a qualified medical expert evaluate all of your medical records. The doctor has to go ahead and determine that yes, the people whom you are suing or thinking of suing violated the basic standards of medical care. And as a result of that, as a result of violating those standards of care, you suffered significant harm and injury. Now, can you go forward in New York with a case without having a medical expert? The answer is no, you can't. So now, get back to the title that I raised in this video. The doctor's charging $10,000. And you are outraged when you hear this from your attorney. You don't understand how it's possible that any expert could charge that amount of money to review your records. You thought your records only involve one particular hospital admission. You thought they only involved an emergency room admission, maybe a few pages at most. And you're wondering, how is it possible an expert could charge such an exorbitant fee to review your particular records? Well, let me share with you how. First, in order to understand that question, we have to go back for a moment. Your understanding of what you perceive was done wrong is not the full extent of what the expert has to review. The expert has to review not just the records relating to the incident itself. The expert has to go back in time to see what your past medical history was, to see about any other prior hospitalizations, to look at and evaluate other records for you in the past, whether it's your primary care doctor, whether it's a cardiologist, whatever it is, your expert has to go back in time to compare the records that you had in the past and your medical condition and the treatment that you received, as well as the actual incident itself. And then your expert has to understand and go through all the treatment that you received after the wrongdoing occurred to evaluate what problems you have now. So don't think for a second that just because your incident involved one small period of time, let's say an emergency room visit, that means that that's the only thing your expert has to review. And the other thing you may not be aware of is when we request a hospital record, it's not just a few pages. Those hospital records are often hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of pages long, depending upon the length of time you are actually in the hospital. And believe it or not, when we accumulate and gather all those records, before we send it off to a medical expert, we, the attorney, has to go through each and every page of those records. So not only is it extremely time-consuming for us to go through those hundreds or thousands of pages of medical records that you think are only related to 2 or 3 pages or a couple of pages. No, no, no. Instead, we have to go through the hundreds and thousands of pages. There are instances where there may be 5,000 pages of records to review, 8,000 pages to review, 10,000 pages to review. How long do you think it takes someone to read 5,000 pages of detailed medical records? Now, I admit that not all of those records are going to be relevant or related to the issues in your case. But still, how will our medical expert know what is and is not related or important unless they go through each and every page? That's the reality. We won't know until the expert goes through each and every one of those pages. And in order to do that, takes time. And the time is valuable for the physician because the doctor could be doing other things, treating patients. Maybe they're in surgery. Maybe they have other matters to attend to, such as their family. There could be many other things that our expert could be doing, but instead has now chosen to accept responsibility to evaluate your particular case. And instead of just looking at a couple of pages of an emergency room record, now he's got to read through thousands of pages of medical records. And before you know it, he has accumulated many, many, many hours of his time to review those records. And now, that could be 5 hours, it could be 10 hours, it could be 20 hours, it could be more, all depending upon how many records you have and how many records the expert has to review. Then, the expert has to digest that information, come to conclusions, and now formulate opinions about whether or not you do have a valid case. Then, he's got to get on the phone with us and transmit and communicate and articulate for me in detail, in exquisite detail, exactly why he believes we do or do not have a valid case. So all of that takes considerable time and effort and energy. And if we do not go ahead and allow the doctor to go ahead and evaluate all of your medical records that we need to properly evaluate this case, now we're going to be at a significant disadvantage. Because, and I'll tell you something very important, if the expert leaves out a review of certain records, you say, wait a second, he doesn't need to review that record, that's 2 years earlier, there's nothing whatsoever in my record to do that. If we omit from the doctor's review one record or two records because we or you think that it's not related to the issues in your case, I guarantee you that that will come back to bite us in the butt. Why? Because at some point, the defense, when they get copies of all of your medical records, they are going to do an exhaustive review of every single one of your records. Their experts are going to do the same. And now, if they find something that is detrimental to your particular case in any of those records, it's going to decimate our arguments. It's going to destroy many of the arguments that we are making. And now, what's going to happen? What's going to happen is that we are going to be at a significant disadvantage because just maybe some of the information contained in those records that we omitted and did not allow the doctor to review may, in fact, be favorable for the defense, which means it could be deadly to your particular case. In that instance, the doctor may have reached a different opinion and conclusion about whether or not you did have a valid case. So when now you learn that this expert's fee is thousands and thousands of dollars, don't think for a second that that's not justified, because we have to have all of your records reviewed, and if not, we're doing ourselves a disservice and possibly hampering our particular case and knowing at the very outset what the downfalls or pitfalls are in your particular case. So why do I share this quick information? I share it with you just to open your eyes and help you understand how these types of cases work in New York. You know, I recognize you're likely watching this because you have questions or concerns about your own matter. Well, if you have not yet started a lawsuit and your matter did happen in New York, but you still have questions that need to be answered, what I invite you to do is pick up the phone and call me. You know I answer questions like yours every single day, and I'd love to chat with you. You can reach me at 516-487-8207 or by email at Gerry, Gerry, at Oginski-law.com. That's it for today's video. I'm Gerry Oginski. Have a wonderful day.